Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Syed Children's Academy, English language class of grade 8. And I am your teacher, Miss Saba. Our first lesson is present simple tense. In this lesson, I am going to teach you how to use present simple tense and where to use it without making mistakes. There are four main uses of present simple tense. That is to talk about habits and routines, facts about the world or generalizations, schedule events that are about to happen in near future, and finally, very important, that is to talk about states with state verbs. Present simple tense is used to express the idea that an action is repeated or regular. For example, the school opens every morning at 7 means this is the routine timing of a school. Now, example number 2, he always forgets his bag. There it is showing the habit. Number 3, every 12 months the earth circles the sun means this is the repeated action. Now, let's talk about facts or generalizations. The present simple tense can also indicate the speaker's belief that a fact was true before, is true now, and will be true in the future. It also used to make generalizations about people or things. For example, cats like milks. Now it's the generalization of cats because all the cats like milk. In example number 2, Islamabad is the capital of Pakistan. Now it is the fact because this is not going to change. Now let's talk about schedule events. Present simple tense is used to talk about schedule events, means the events that didn't happen but will happen in the near future. For example, the bus leaves tonight at 6 p.m. It means the bus didn't leave but will leave at 6 tonight. So, this is the scheduled event. Just like that, in example number 2, the party starts at 8 o'clock tomorrow. It means the party is not right now, but it will start tomorrow. So, this is also the scheduled event. Now, let's talk about the fourth use, which is states. Some English verbs are called state verbs. They are almost always used in simple rather than continuous tenses. These verbs are most often about thoughts, feelings, possessions, or the senses, and are usually considered as a state or condition that's either true or false, not as something that is in the process of happening. For example, I want to get a new t shirt. Here, the state is true because I really want to get a new t shirt. In example number 2, I don't want to get a new t shirt. Here, the state is false because I really don't want it. But the important thing is, in both the cases, I cannot say I am wanting or I am not wanting to get a new t shirt. Because if I will say I am wanting, then it will show the process of happening, which is wrong. Because states cannot be something that is in the process of happening. In this chart of state verb, you can see and learn different state verbs as they fall in different categories. Now, I will explain how the simple present tense is used with frequency time expressions. Like you can see in the chart, there are some frequency time expressions like always, usually, generally, often, sometimes, occasionally, seldom, rarely, hardly ever, and never. There are also some percentages which are showing their use. If you are talking about something that you do all the time, then you will use always, because if you are doing something all the time, then it is 100% of the time. So you will use always. Now move forward to the next slide to get the better understanding. Here we have some examples of frequency time expressions. In example number 1, you can see I always go there on Sunday means there is a place where I go all the time. That is why I use the expression always. In the last example, you can see my parents never leave home in the evening means my parents leave home 0% of the time in the evening. So I use never as an expression to explain that they don't go out in the evening. Now I will teach you how to make positive affirmative statements with present simple tense. Well, it's very easy. You just have to take a subject, add a main verb in it, and then add the rest of a sentence. You have to remember that as main verb, you always have to use base form, means first form of verb in present simple tense. But there are some spelling rules to follow. Always remember with subjects in the third person singular in the present simple tense, affirmative only, you must add the s at the end of the main verb according to the spelling rules. As you can see in the chart above, I have categorized the subjects in two ways. In first one, I have written I, you, we or they and used base form of verb. And in the second column, I have written he, she, it and use main verb with s. You can also see the examples that I have written. Example number 1, I live in France. And in example number 2, I have written she lives in France. Now, why is that? Why we have to add s with she and not with I? It is because there are some spelling rules which we are going to learn now. Always remember to add s to the verb when your subject is he, she, it or third person singular. It will only happen in affirmative statements of present simple tense. Here I have written in the spelling rules that to most verbs we just add s when the subject is third person singular. But the verbs that ends at s, double s, sh, ch, x or o, we add es with these verbs. As you can see, miss changes into misses and finish changes into finishes. Watch changes into watches and mix changes into mixes and go changes into goes. Now, if your word ends at consonant plus y, just like study, we will change it according to the rule. And the rule is if your verb is ending in consonant plus y, you just remove y from the verb and add ies. As you can see, study changes into studies and cry changes into cries. Now, what will you do if your verb ends at vowel plus y? You will simply add s at the end of your verb. Just like in example, play changes into plays. We also have some irregular spellings like have and be verb. Have always changes into has, and be verb has three forms, that is, am, is, are. We will talk about verb be later. Now, let's move forward toward the negative statements. In negative statements, you have to use auxiliary verbs that are also called helping verbs. You always have to remember that where you use auxiliary verbs to make the statements negative. There is a general rule to make negative statement, and that is subject plus auxiliary verb plus not plus main verb and plus rest of the sentence. As you can see in the example, there are two ways of making negative statements. With the subjects I, you, we, they, you will use auxiliary verb do not, or you can write don't. Then you will add the main verb work and the rest of the sentence in the evening. But you will make negative statements of he, she, it with does not or doesn't. Always remember to add do not or does not between the subject and the main verb of the sentence. Let's talk about interrogatives or questions. There are three types of interrogatives in present simple tense. Number one is yes or no questions. The general rule for this is auxiliary verb plus subject plus main verb plus rest of the sentence. Here I have written both the auxiliary verbs do or does. You will use do when your subject is I, you, we, they, or any plural noun, and you will use does when your subject is he, she, it, or any third person singular noun. The first example is do I work in the evening, and the second example is does he work at home. Both ends at the question mark, so never forget to put question mark at the end of the question, and always remember to add do or does before the subject in yes or no questions. The second type of interrogatives is WH questions. In WH questions, you will use WH question word before the auxiliary verb, and the general rule is WH question word plus auxiliary verb plus subject plus main verb plus rest of the sentence. Here we have two examples. When do I work? Question mark. And where does he work? Question mark. In both the examples, you can see I have put WH question word before the auxiliary verb. Now you always have to remember to add do or does after the WH word and before the subject in WH questions. The third category of interrogatives is WH subject questions. And the general rule for making WH subject questions is WH subject question plus main verb plus rest of the sentence. Here you can see in the example number 1, who works here question mark, and example number 2, what happens at the end of the story question mark. In both the examples we don't have subject but WH subject questions. In WH subject questions we never add do or does, and we don't have subjects because our WH question word acts as a subject in these type of sentences. Now finally we will talk about be verb in present simple tense. General rule of making affirmative statement of be verb is subject plus verb be plus other information, and the general rule of making negative statement of verb be is subject plus verb be plus not plus other information. We have three forms of verb be: am, is, are. As you can see in the table, I have written all the subjects and the be verbs. According to this chart, we will use am with subject I and is with subjects he, she, it, or any singular noun. And finally, verb be are with subjects you, we, they, or any plural noun. Just take subject I and make a affirmative statement. Like I did, I am a teacher. This is an affirmative statement according to the general rule. Now, for making negative statement, I have to add not, but where? Of course, after the verb be, because this is the general rule. We always use not after the verb be. So, I will add not after the am. So, my affirmative statement is I am a teacher, and I will make negative statement I am not a teacher. Now, read and learn remaining be verb examples and make some of your own. Now, let's move forward towards your home task. Now, in this worksheet of present simple, we have positive statements, negative statements, and some questions. What you will do is you will find and correct the mistakes below, as I have done in the first statement, which was saying he go to bed very early. But we cannot use go with he as a subject, as we have learned in the spelling rules that we use s in the main verb if our subject is he, she, it, or third person singular noun in affirmative statements. So I have corrected the spelling according to the spelling rule. You have to do the same on your own. So read all the statements, identify them, and then correct the mistakes. In the second worksheet of present simple tense, what you will do is you will click on the correct option. Like every sentence has two options. You just have to pick the right option for the sentence according to the rules you have learned. Now, in number 2, you will complete the given sentences by using present simple tense from the brackets given at the end of the sentence. You will use the present simple forms of the verbs given in the brackets. Now, watch this video a couple of times to understand and learn how to make or use present simple tenses. See you in the next lecture. Allah Hafiz.